Hello and welcome. Coming to you from Site S4 near Area 51. I'm Josh.
And I'm Jon. And that green goo, that was food, right?
No, that was an experiment.
What are you talking about? Experiment?
Anyway, this is the Geek ETC podcast, where we dive into all things you can geek out about.
So anybody that follows our Instagram at Geek ETC podcast on Instagram, they saw that I had a couple stories about a week ago.
Okay.
And I was in so for those who are from the US, the FAA Drone 107 school. So the FAA Part 107 drone school. So I was learning about the rules and regulations for that so I can...
How to fly one.
No, not even. No, like where you can fly it, where you can do things with it.
Oh, just the legality aspects behind it.
Because you have to take a test. You have to take a test to be able to fly a drone and make money from it or anything like that. Like say you want to go do real estate pictures, right? And you're going to make money for that.
Oh,
you are subject to FAA Rule Part 107, and you have to know the rules and guidelines that go along with that. So it's actually kind of really interesting. I put up. Have you seen aeronautical charts before?
You showed me that one the other day.
That's right.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It is so silly. It is so silly. And when I'm reading it, they're like, "Well,
we'll post a photo to Instagram.
We'll post like the one near Dallas is just a real cluster." But there's it's so crazy because they ask you these questions. They give you a test booklet with like figures, like with like different pictures of different aeronautical charts and like some charts and everything when you go take the test, which, drum roll please, I passed.
Oh,
so
what?
I passed the FAA exam. So
dude, congrats.
I've got that. I'll get my airman number. But one of the things I've been thinking about is that'll lead us to, we've talked about Brown Mountain Lights.
Right.
Not too long ago in one of our episodes. Check that one out because Josh and I have a lot of personal experience if you're just now joining us. But if we ever want to actually go up there and maybe do it. Now, I did get some bad news that the national parks are like no-fly zones.
Really?
But I can file a request and like a flight plan within 90 days of doing it and get approval.
Oh, so you can file a thing to try and get approval to like, hey, within these 90 days, I'm going to I would like to fly this in this area. Is that okay?
Yes, exactly. So that would make that. So the chances that like A, getting a drone, B, them being able to go fly it and maybe like getting some cool overhead views or some like stuff at nighttime, which night times, will be kind of interesting because you'll have to have anti-collision lights that are visible from 3 statute miles. That's a test question, y'all.
Oh.
So if you're studying, you're welcome. But that's one of the things.
It's not cheating. It's taking full advantage of the situation.
Well, you have to, man. You have to. Like I watched so many YouTube videos on it on top of going to a class taught by a guy that owns a drone instructor program. Right.
Right.
And we flew drones the last day for the little bit, just as like a familiarization. And there are some crazy ones out there, especially those search and rescue drones. Like one's called the DJI M30. Oh my God. It's not that big.
The DJIs. Yeah.
Yeah. The M30 specifically. I got to fly that one a little bit and pretty crazy. Like 200 times optical zoom with FLIR and infrared different things. And
right. The videos I've seen of those are insane. Like the capabilities of them. Like it is straight up future tech.
And they're not that loud either. Like once you send that thing up like at 200 feet in the air, which is realistically not that high.
It just kind of disappears a little bit.
It kind of just like disappears into the periphery.
And I'm sure with things like that too, they're always like, developing blade technology so that, they're like, it still provides the same amount of lift, but they're like slightly different angles and stuff. So it I know Apple did this with the fans in their laptops. That they staggered like the way that the blades are angled so that it eliminates sound. It's some kind of like a resonance frequency or something.
Well, that's very clever. Congratulations to the engineers at Apple.
Indeed.
And DJI, because wow, what a masterpiece that thing was. It was very impressive, very crazy to think about all the the applications it can have. You could track people and vehicles on it. Like you could it would bring up on the screen and you could hit a button and it would the gimbaled camera would automatically just focus on that person.
That's
and
scary.
It is kind of crazy because you're like, what if you can do that with a DJI Mini 30, which it does cost I think it was $20-something thousand.
Jeez.
But what can you do with like a $15 million satellite? You
Right.
know?
Exactly. That gives you a little insight onto, they always say, the satellites, they can read your license plate and all that stuff. They can do more than that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They'll read the nutrition facts on the candy bar you're eating.
Which is probably, I probably sparked half the debate for changing a lot of that stuff. They're like, why is he always eating like Reese's M&Ms or whatever, peanut butter M&Ms?
Always go with Reese Pieces.
Reese's? No, I don't think so.
Yes.
No.
We will have this debate. We'll go over our top 10 candies.
Well, no. So there's nothing wrong with Reese's Pieces. To be fair, there's nothing wrong with Reese's Pieces.
You're right, because it's the best candy.
It is very good, but the problem is you don't get as much. I wish I don't get as much peanut butter out of it as I do the M&Ms.
I feel like it'd be too
Reese's.
much peanut butter.
Well, how do I make my sandwiches though? You
true.
make your sandwiches, right? Half and half.
Evenly split.
I don't. I'm a man. I'm my masculinity.
You gotta get that little extra protein in there.
My masculinity is tied to the amount of peanut butter, and so if you've ever looked at the serving size, it's like.
Is that how you got so strong? All the tons of peanut butter that you've eaten through your life?
Probably, man.
I mean, that's a lot of protein.
Well, it's like a tablespoon, right? Tablespoon is supposed to be the serving size of peanut butter, and even then, it's like 230 calories or something silly like that for like 1 tablespoon. Like if you're just doing Jif, but I do like one big, like a huge butter knife full of peanut butter,
right?
And then I'm like, yeah, just a little bit more,
just a little bit,
and then
extra.
just a little jelly, like probably what you would put like on a sandwich for jelly on the other slice, just to help it wash down.
Oh, just enough to kind of you get a little bit of a taste and kind of smooth it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you're making a peanut butter sandwich with jelly.
No, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but for you, that's what you would call it. Yeah.
Okay.
But me, I'm a man, so I eat more peanut butter than you.
If that's how you want to classify it. We'll go with that.
But anyway, so drifting a little bit off topic. So the UAS's, as Small Unmanned Aerial System or whatever it's called, that exam was hard. It's like 60 questions. I had to go to a testing center. So like, you do the class or whatever. I guess you could just go pay the $150 or whatever to go take the class somewhere or to just go take the test without doing a class. But I did the class, did all the hands-on, learned from the guy, who's teaching it. And he was, cool guy, older dude. He had some like search and rescue experience and was showing some of his pictures from that. But going through that and then going to the test. So the test, apparently there's like a pool of like 700 questions and they pull 60 of those out. And so it's like impossible to learn like all the things you need to learn kind of. And that was kind of annoying. Like, and then having to do math, like it's like, if your whatever pound drone takes this angle of bank on like a turn, like what would be
if 2 trains hit, one departs from Boston, one departs from New York, one's at this speed and one's at that speed.
Well, it's like, there is a chart. So it's like, so it's not that hard. And they have a calculator built into the test. And, luckily, because I cannot do math at all, but it's like 1.154. This is the elephant never forgetting right here.
Right.
The numbers is like is what you would multiply the number by. And that would come out to be how much force is exerted on your UAV or whatever.
Right. That's interesting.
It's nuts, man. It's crazy how cool things are. We talked about them a lot. We talked about in the Brown Mountain Lights, we talked about drones a little bit and how they weren't that ubiquitous when we went up there.
Right.
And FAA has only instituted those rules, like this FAA like requirement to get your Part 107, like, you unmanned aerial vehicle license, like in 2018. So very interesting. Like, it's crazy how much stuff goes into it. There was like a little bit of it, like I grew up doing like flight simulators on the computer. That's like one of the few things we had at my house on PC. We had like a Jane's Defense Group, which is like
there's Jane's. It was like a series of things, wasn't it?
They did. So Jane's Defense Group is actually like a military contractor that does like, they're kind of like an open source intelligence thing. Like they put together like, different, this is what this tank does. This is what this gun can do for like different, independent nations or whatever. And they had their own flight sim that was called Jane's Fighter Anthology. And so it had all of these planes in it, like all these different planes, and you could go do all these different missions. And so I grew up with my brother playing that some, and it was kind of cool because I would do like, 10 on 10, like, fighter dogfight things.
I had some like I don't remember what it was called. Some basic little fighter jet game on the family PC way back in the day. I don't remember what it was, but I remember you could like drop a nuke. That's the
Yeah.
only thing I remember from it, and it was pretty cool. But
There was no nukes in this, but you could do
Yeah.
ground targets, like, you know, like, oh, the Maverick missile would like it was an air to ground missile, and then there was like, you know, AIM 9 sidewinders and different things that were like air to air missiles and stuff. And
for a moment I checked out that the new Microsoft Flight Simulator,
because it's like free, isn't it?
yeah, it's on Xbox Game Pass. But that game looks insane. Like it looks
Oh,
real.
yeah.
And like the maps that they had they use I think they use Bing maps, obviously it's Microsoft. But yeah, some of the maps and stuff on there are crazy, and all the planes. But I don't think I even got off the ground
Yeah.
because of the like startup flight things you have to do to
Yeah.
turn on the plane.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to do it on like I don't remember if I tried it on PC or if it was Xbox the one I tried. I think it was on PC because there were so many buttons that I couldn't figure out even like make the plane go. So I may try it again later on Xbox with more simple
flight controls. Yeah.
That, or if I could get a HOTAS set up for the PC.
Oh yeah.
Then I'd like to try that. But I also want to try that with Star Citizen, but that's another discussion.
Oh my God, Star Citizen.
I loaded that up the other day.
Did you?
I'll have to show you some of that later.
Ooh, okay. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting. You know, I like that kind of thing. So it was interesting to see like some of the things like runway numbers, you know, like they have to do like the runway number itself apparently has to do with like the orientation to magnetic north, right? So like runway 35 will be you traveling in a 350 degree. So you like add a 0 to it. So that would be like, so runway 09 would be you'd be traveling from, you know, you would actually be traveling from the west to the east, right, in a 90 degree, like on the pathway to like 90 degrees or whatever.
I see what you're saying.
So just lots of little things like that. It was kind of interesting. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So if you do want to get your FAA Part 107, or you want to make money and not get a $15,000 fine from doing your from like just flying a drone and making money off of it,
your wedding photography or something.
Well, they made an example out of some like YouTuber, and they charged him like $15,000 or $20,000 per video that he was making money off of.
That kind of reminds me very similar of like if anybody who's into ham radios and stuff, you know, they may just get a little Chinese Baofeng, you know, just play around with and listen in on stuff and talk on it or whatever. That would get you into like deep trouble.
It's like $10,000 automatically, right? If you mess around. Yeah.
And the thing with hams, they're so plugged into that stuff and know that stuff so well that there's been many instances of someone who was doing that, just like chatting on things unlicensed, and very seasoned professional hams are able to figure out what towers they're bouncing off of and triangulate them and they went to their house and like threatened them like, don't do this anymore or we're turning you over to like the FCC.
Good.
Yeah. So I was like,
well, maybe not good. I don't know. I mean, I guess it is good that people just can't get on there.
Yeah, get on there willy-nilly because it's just a free thing.
Yeah.
And people do use that for, granted, there's an exception in like in state of emergencies and stuff, like if there's a hurricane or natural disaster or something, then you can go on there for emergency only purposes.
Yeah, there's always like some for emergencies.
You can also just take the test, which is like 20 or 40 questions or something, and get certified.
Well, so are we broadcasting on ham radio? We're not on any frequency?
No.
Could we?
Technically, probably.
That'd be interesting. Because how else are people going to find out how to join our crew?
That's a good point.
Maybe because if those people are only listening to their things, they wouldn't be on their podcast probably listening to us as we talk about.
They would probably be
things.
missing out on all the cool benefits you can get from joining our Patreon at patreon.com/geeketc podcast.
Apparently, a stowaway is like $1 a month.
It is.
And now that I've done the class, I'm a little bit better at math. $1 a month.
That's the C. Carry the
same joke. We did the same joke. It's $12 a year.
Yeah,
so
which is like nothing. If you have, that's what, 1 cup of coffee now.
No, my God, no, that's way less than a cup. $12. Are you talking about $12 for the whole year?
Yeah, I mean like $12.
$12, yeah, it's probably that's definitely like one thing from Starbucks.
Not to give up your coffee for us by any means.
And we're not money hungry. It just we spend money trying to like make sure we sound good and being able to put things out there. So if you do enjoy it and you do want to give back, it's obviously not, this is not something a subscription based thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to give back to us, consider joining the crew. We've got different things you can get from Patreon, And it also keeps us from having to like hit you with a bunch of stupid ads.
Right.
Other
And
than
that's
just
the main
us.
thing is there's anybody who's beholden to ad companies and all this. I was listening to a podcast today that was talking about that anybody beholden to ads and all this stuff, they essentially can control your show
We
and
don't
what
want
you
that.
talk about and what platforms you're on and all this sort of stuff. And then on top of that, having to just stop what you're talking about to talk about something completely unrelated for 30 seconds. But yeah, they kind of have a power over you. And we don't want that.
No.
We want to be beholden to you, the listener,
Yes.
and bring you what you want to listen to, not what some pillow company or, I don't know. I can't think of anything
Royal
else.
Match.
Oh, stop it.
No, for sure. So,
Yeah.
just like Josh is saying, if you're interested, if you want to do it, if you like what we're putting out there, please consider just joining the crew. The good thing is you actually get additional benefits from that, aka watching our gameplay. Josh and I have a series called Co-op Therapy, where it's just kind of us goofing around on different games and kind of chit-chatting. And so,
Yeah, we'll probably have some more episodes of that up here before too long. So be on the lookout for that. if
my
you're interested.
computer can't run Star Citizen, so
Well, mine can't.
oh, yours
really
can't either.
well.
Well,
Mine's the one that we record all this on, and it's beefy, but it still can't even hardly keep up with that.
Yeah. So please consider joining the crew. We would love to have you, and we'd love to give some shout outs from some of our fans. So, and also have some feedback for you if you want us to talk about anything or whatever, where you've got lots of options down the road. But, speaking of crews, who sometimes we assume like operate in crews. And
Goldfish.
No, I think that's a murder. No, I think a murder
of goldfish.
Murder of goldfish. Josh, you know what we're geeking out about this week?
I do, but why don't you tell the listeners?
We're geeking out about aliens.
Oh my goodness! Cue the X-Files music.
So Josh and I, we briefly spoke about UAPs. I think, what was it, our Hogwarts episode?
I don't remember. It could have been though.
I think it was. We briefly spoke about UAPs, and so this is like kind of diving into the paranormal again, and we're talking about aliens. And I think every person should talk about it. I think every person should kind of like look at themselves and say, well, what is out there?
Right.
What exists outside of my living room, outside of my bedroom?
Yeah. This is a very big world we live on.
Huge.
Most of which has never been explored, especially the oceans.
Because the oceans make up the majority of the planet.
Yeah, so there's only been like a percentage explored. And then you expand the scope beyond that to our solar system. If our world is this big, our solar system is infinitely bigger. More bigger?
Yeah, it's infinitely
bigger.
larger. And then you get into our local cluster, right?
Yes.
So then you get a local cluster of multiple solar systems.
Yeah. Right. You have the Milky Way, and then you go beyond that.
Andromeda, Alpha Centauri, those areas, right? And then we go into our actual galaxy itself, or Milky Way is our galaxy.
Yeah, Milky Way.
Milky Way is the entire galaxy. So it really does. It's one of those things that like I think about often whenever I'm outside and I don't have any light pollution at my house. I look up at the sky.
Yeah, I'm jealous of that.
I look up at the sky and I say, I wonder if I'm seeing the swan song of a planet, of like a long dead race as their sun burns out into nothingness.
Well, that's the thing,
we will never know about them, and we'll never know what they were about.
Right.
We'll never hear their poetry. We'll never see what they look like. We'll never understand them. Because if we're looking up in the sky and something's 200,000 light years away.
Yeah, then most of
we're
what
looking at
anytime you look up in the sky, you're looking at the past.
You are. We are time travelers.
Yeah, you could very well be looking at a star or entire cluster of stars that doesn't even exist anymore.
Nothing around anymore.
Which is kind of hard to fathom.
Yeah.
But that's the science behind it. Is they're so many light years away, and it takes a light year for anyone who doesn't know is how it's a measure of distance as opposed to time, how far light can travel over the course of a year.
Yes. And so first off, Josh and I are not physicists, and we are not scientists. No. And I got a D, I think, in science.
I got A's in science. That was kind of my thing, but
I was good at it too. I never did my homework.
Right. That's how I was in English.
Oh, so understand that there's probably some stuff that we're going to say that's a little bit wrong, but we want to discuss it. This is most of the stuff we talk about is from a layman's perspective. There are some things that Josh and I have specific expertise in.
Right. But we're talking from a place of it's something we have an interest in that intrigues us.
Just like if you guys we were all at a restaurant and we're chit-chatting about a fun topic.
Indeed.
So when I think aliens, everybody goes to, I think one of the first places somebody goes to in their head, and it's almost like programmed in there, is like Area 51, Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah, the typical what you would call the grays.
Yes, big head, little eyes, little mouth,
skinny
no nose.
body, short little green, the small green men, that you've seen.
Yeah.
That's typically, like you said, where people's minds go to.
So I have to ask the question is Josh, do you think that our planet, past, present, has been visited by an extraterrestrial race?
That is a very interesting question, because part of my opinion is that not only have we possibly been visited, but maybe we are the visitors.
Okay, that's what what went through my head was like, what if Josh just like started unzipping his skin suit,
I reach under my chin and start to pull the stuff back. Oh my
start
God.
making noises.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. I'd be friends with an alien.
Hey,
so you think that we might be the visitors? So
or at least the case that there could be things here, either in the past or that are still here, that have been here long before humanity as we know it.
Okay.
As, the whatever, variant of Pithecus that we are.
Yeah.
Or sapien, Homo sapien, whatever, it may be kind of deal. Very well could be, that there was things that have long lived here before our civilizations that we know it.
I've seen, so what you're talking, I have seen some things in the past where it's more, some people believe that like we came here from Mars. I've seen some things like that where like the Martian climate and everything got so bad and the world was becoming destroyed, and so people came here, like humanity.
Interesting.
I don't really, I'm not really.
Yeah.
It's not something I think about. Isn't there a new Adam Driver movie coming out with like that exact premise?
There's one called 65.
I think that's literally
there's dinosaurs. It's just Ark survival, probably. I don't.
Well, I think that's what it is. I think like it's like humanity visiting Earth for the first like.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think
I've only seen it in ads before YouTube videos, so I haven't ever actually.
You never finished it.
Yeah. I never watched the trailer all the way. I just skip it. So.
All right. So there we have it, guys. Josh believes that we are in an Adam Driver movie.
No, I don't.
Not at all. Hopefully not. That is really crazy. I think that's that would be really interesting. What are some things that you might think have been here before us?
Because there's lots of theories and stuff behind. A lot of people talk about the concept of extraterrestrials.
Yes.
There's another theory referring to the thought behind these things being intraterrestrial, meaning that they are essentially not from outer space, but potentially, from within our oceans.
So that wouldn't be alien at all at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing to differentiate the difference between alien and, extraterrestrial.
Native. Alien and native. Yeah. So, alien would be just somebody not from, somebody not from here, something not from here. So
right.
You're saying, you think that there might be some like native or like highly advanced civilization that has existed or exists currently?
Or even some kind of creatures like there's, if you take octopus or octopi. Cephalopods, for example. You look at them, they, if there is a great example of a, something close to an alien life form in the oceans, they're pretty dang close to it. For one, they're able to camouflage themselves seamlessly and can, change colors, become translucent sometimes. They are obscenely smart. They're able to solve puzzles. They're able to open jars and climb in and seal themselves back up type of things. And then you look at them too, or them are like jellyfish, and they look almost like a single-celled organism. Like you don't see a brain in there, you don't see anything, but they're still intelligent somehow. And it's just very, I don't know, very intriguing to me.
If we lived underwater, though, would they look as weird as like maybe a snake, or like imagine a dolphin seeing a giraffe for the first time,
right?
When all they've seen is like a horse on the
beach.
Guess
the things like with those though, if you were to dissect them, you'll find very common similar things. You'll see, a brain and a spinal cord and bones and in muscles and all that same sort. It may be in, elongated or in different shapes, possibly, But then you go to again some things like jellyfish or octopi or something, and it's completely different.
Well, yeah. Well, they are carbon based though, and that's one of the
Exactly.
that's one of the key things. Sometimes I wonder,
Yeah.
when I do think on those things like carbon based life forms, what if there's a possibility there could be silicon
Well,
based life forms?
a theory that I've actually heard Joe Rogan mention many times on his show, the theory that the sightings of aliens and stuff, or even people's accounts that they've interacted with them, in abduction cases and stuff, that they theorize that they're just us from the future.
So that is interesting. That's almost like what's the snake that's eating itself, like
The Ouroboros.
Ouroboros kind of thing,
Yeah.
where they're like coming back. I've heard that before. Because so here's one of the things that I wanted to bring up when we were talking about this. Time is so vast,
Mhm.
right? And because we see it from like a human perspective, it's so easy for us to think, well, because we're just a blip.
Mhm.
That we're just a blip in the universe, but we're not. We're not, right? We are very present. We've been present on this earth for a while, right?
Yes.
So, what if we are the first species to ever be here? What if we're the first sentient species in the entire universe? It is as possible for me that we are the first sentient species in the universe
Mhm.
as we are the millionth.
That kind of also correlates, which is something we may talk about in a later episode, the whole kind of simulation theory
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, that we very well could be in the simulation thing, and or we could be the people who invent it.
Well, just like I said,
Yeah.
like just like now, somebody is singing the swan song. Somebody is singing, not the swan song, 'cause right now, thank God, but somebody is seeing our sun's light is being carried for light years on, and
Right.
if we were on another planet in another cluster solar system, you would be seeing those things. You would be seeing the light from Sol, our sun.
Yeah, there could be somebody on another distant planet, far enough away that we're not aware of them, but still close enough that they could see our sun. They could be essentially seeing light from our sun, a million,
10,000 years from now.
10,000 years from now.
10,000 years
Yeah.
from now, long
The
after
same light that
we've
we
gone
see
away.
when we look up right now. The sun for us is only 93 million miles away, so light gets here fairly quickly. But yeah, then something gets 10,000 light years away, they could still see the same light that we see today as we look up, but 10,000 years from now.
10,000 years from now, and who knows what the human race will be doing 10,000 years from now.
We very well not be here. We might, have advanced, with the advancement of body augmentations and integration with technology and that kind of stuff, that we may have advanced as a civilization to these silicate life forms that
The
you're
Cylons
talking
were
about.
built by man, but they rebelled.
Indeed.
Are you familiar with the Fermi paradox?
I've heard about it, but I can't recall off the top of my head what the whole deal of
It was proposed by a physicist named Enrico Fermi, an Italian guy who became a naturalized U.S. citizen, right? And he worked on the Manhattan Project.
Oh, yeah.
And so he had this theory, like, because it's so vast, it makes sense there will be life out there, but why haven't we seen it? There's lots of solutions. One of the things I think he proposed, and one of the more frequent like proposals, like solutions to the Fermi paradox, is like any species, when it reaches like a nuclear age, will inevitably destroy itself.
Right.
Ergo, they'll never become like, an advanced civilization capable of space travel or traveling to more outside of their solar system, let alone, traveling to other parts of the galaxy, traveling outside of the galaxy, or colonizing.
Beyond the scope of their own kind of existence.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
So I think that's an interesting one. One that I've been interested in recently, and it's kind of like there's a book by, I don't want to say his name wrong, like Shizhen Liu. He's a Chinese author. It's like the 3-body problem. It's a sci-fi book. And some of his stuff goes into this a little bit, and that's the dark forest theory. Are you familiar with that at all?
You got to dropping a lot of theories on me that sound familiar, but I don't.
You're the one talking about cephalopods.
True. Well,
so
tell me about it though.
The dark forest theory is kind of one of those that the galaxy. We'll take the galaxy, right? We'll talk about the Milky Way itself.
Okay.
Is a dark forest.
Good candy bar.
It is dark forest at nighttime.
Okay.
Right. There are hunters. There are hunted, and none of them want to give away their presence. Right.
Okay.
Just like the jaguar in a rainforest doesn't announce his presence before or her presence before it strikes, so does the prey that doesn't want to be heard and is stalking quietly. And it makes sense that there would be very little presence or very little communication, or people might have noticed other civilizations might have know of our presence, but they don't know if we're the hunter or the huntee.
Right.
And to expose themselves puts them at risk of calling out, like lighting a fire in the dark forest. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of scary with me, is because I think we're sending presidents' ashes into space right now. Mm-hmm. We've sent out things all over the place.
We sent those golden discs.
We sent those golden discs
that have like all the, at least at the time, all the pertinent information. They had coordinates to where we are as a, species into our galaxy and our solar system. Like I don't remember what I was on, but there's like a ton of scientific information and mathematics and
like our DNA chain.
DNA, exactly. Yeah, all that sort of stuff.
Imagine if you were the hunter. Maybe let's go with like, this is just total like, theory, right? This is just me talking. This isn't even going into like,
just throwing stuff out against the wall.
Imagine you were a hunter and you are an entity that destroys things, kind of like Independence Day or something like that, right?
Malevolent.
You take over things, you use it, you abuse it, you move on.
You mine it for its resources or any kind of valuables, whatever. Yeah, and you move on to the next thing.
So in the likelihood, that these tiny little golden discs would be found in the vast vacuum of space, right? And that let's say they dink into some ship,
right?
And they look at it and they say, they gave us their DNA code. Okay. Well, let's just send a virus down that kills every single living human being on the planet.
I have something that immediately cuts this DNA in half and just drops it instantly.
It makes me think that sometimes I think every human like being in the time that they've lived has thought that they're the smartest. Obviously they were, right? They were always like, we're the smartest people who ever lived, right? We are right now. We're the smartest people who ever lived.
A lot of humanity assumes, we're in the most advanced stage of humanity that has ever existed in all of time.
But there is a likelihood that in 200 years, somebody will watch an F-22 Raptor flying at Mach 4, Mach 5 through the same lens that we watch the slow motion or like the black and white grainy, no audio footage of the Wright brothers on Kitty Hawk.
Kitty Hawk, yeah.
Right? It'll be the same level of advancement.
And if you take into account the kind of domino effect of the advancements of technology and how that continually builds on itself and gets quicker and quicker, that was, how many, 100 years ago, whatever. And from there to where we are now, and we may be at that next equivalent jump in 50 years.
Yeah.
And then from there, 25 years kind of thing. So yeah, even in 50 years, it may look like that.
So, and it does seem to compound on itself some.
Yeah.
So that's the question. So if I think I'd like to focus on some actual Fermi paradox things, like as their standalone thing.
Okay.
And this is just us kind of like on the broad topic of, and I think we'll do deep dives later.
There's a lot of particular cases and instances around the whole extraterrestrial thing.
I think we could cover some of those today.
I'd like to dive into.
I think we could cover some of those today. Yeah. I think it's interesting to me, though, that we are on a floating ball. Realistically, that's pretty well stocked full of things. And a new shepherd might feel that they could take care of the flock better than us. Right? And a new hunter might see us as like a perfect food source or whatever.
Or energy source.
Energy source.
Kind. Yeah.
Right? I think that we are so excited to be out there and we do these things. And do we even know? We don't know. I didn't see them put the golden discs on there. I didn't see them spin in outer space. the moon landing, did it happen? Did it not?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate and a lot of evidence pointing both ways on that one for sure.
Could they make it past the Kepler radiation belt or whatever it's called?
Right.
Right. That apparently is a big issue.
Mm.
I don't know any of that. I'm, like I said, D in science, but you and I, the casual citizen of the United States of America, have no say in what goes out there. We have no say in how we would deal with extraterrestrials, how we would deal with a perceived alien threat, how we would deal with,
that if something did show up, how would we handle that? How would we communicate? Would we respond with aggression or peace treaties? Or
because it is kind of like an interesting dichotomy, because we seem to be very militant towards things like that, right? We do.
Well,
but we also put out there, the science community seems to be like, hey guys, kind of like Ralph or whatever from Simpsons. They're like, hey, like come, it's us.
Right.
And then if somebody comes in, and then we're like, Fox 1, fire missiles.
Yeah.
Fire the cannons.
Any kind of, like, most of the portrayal that you see in either movies, TV shows, or even just, this recent talk about, UAPs and all this stuff, all of it is touted and perceived as potential threats. And that's why there's so much attention being brought to a lot of stuff like this lately is, the potential for national security or this or that or whatever. And, again, all of media, it's all typically portrayed as it's some, hostile thing coming in to abduct people and probe them and, take our cattle and all that kind of stuff. So it's often portrayed as threats, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. But
I'm not either. I'm not a huge fan of like the threat of it, but man, is it if someone could travel through the stars. So when we talk about, traveling through the stars anyways, right? It would have to be like a sleeper ship, right? Imagine this thing, a ship that's manned by AI completely.
Yes.
Cryogenically frozen to withstand long journeys. Or somebody that's developed the capability, of faster than light, travel, or knows how to utilize like wormholes or shortcuts,
right,
to get to us. Then we have to take into account that our solar system's not the 2D model that we look at in science class.
No.
It is a rotating
very
spiral.
Simplified, yeah.
It is a rotating spiral on like a 3D axis that is hurtling through space.
Right.
Right. So if if we beam somewhere else and then beam back to the exact position, we might be thousands of we might be a much further behind.
Don't realize, but
we might even be on Earth anymore.
The Earth is moving through space. I don't remember if it's like 83,000 miles an hour, or
it's fast.
It's some, arbitrary number that
the sun is pulling us along on this big journey.
Yeah.
And we have,
if you were to jump and detach from Earth's gravity for like a moment in time,
Doppler effect, we'd be without
disappear.
the sound, but we would be done.
You would just disappear.
Exactly. It'd be like jumping up on a train or something like that.
Right.
The train would leave us behind.
Technically, if you jumped up on a train, you'd already have forward momentum, and so you would continue on for a little bit. That's
no, you would go back.
No.
I think.
Anyway,
so,
yeah, but that being a point, yes, time and distance and spatial. I'm trying to think of it, like how we exist in space and time is still very much unknown.
Yeah, we don't know.
No.
There are theoretical physicists, right? Theoretical means they just think about it and they propose things, but we don't know.
A theory is not truth, or
we look at when we look at string theory. The string theory is very interesting, but what if in that same lens, when we talk about the Wright brothers, right? We talk about some hocus pocus man, right, in the Roman Empire versus today's modern surgeons, right? What if in the future someone says, well, they got string theory, but they're missing the entire curtain of other things that are there.
Yes.
Right. Which is entirely possible. I just think it's we have to be cautious as we move through what we're going to run into and how we portray ourselves and what we, as a warring, thing. People might see us and say, well, man, they don't even need the planet. They're going to blow it up. We kind of need the resources. They might not even be a hostile thing. They might be one of the prey trying to escape one of the hunters in the dark forest.
Or they may, be just trying to warn us of our own destruction and keep us from destroying ourselves.
Well, we don't do that, though. If you think about it ourselves, like right now, right? When we watch ant colonies.
I was going to mention ant colonies.
If we watch an ant colony fighting another ant colony, nobody sends a thing to them. Nobody, we don't go to them and say, ants,
yes,
hear me out, right?
I have a theory behind that, though.
Okay.
Based on the fact we don't, because the ants don't have anything at their capability that could do any harm to us. Whereas humans with the nuclear weapons, the act of setting off a nuke and the energy that it disperses through the galaxy could, if there is an outside, being or something out in space somewhere, the amount of energy and stuff that is released from a nuke could potentially mess with stuff that is involved with them.
Splitting the atom is a very big step in human progress, and it is a very destructive thing. I agree. But I would argue that somebody with a sling and a stone would pose, it's just like somebody.
No, I'm not saying that.
Would they pose as much of a threat to a drone with a grenade attached to it? Or let's just go back to the F-22 analogy. Would they be concerned?
I don't mean a threat as in we would use nukes against them, but there's a side effect from nukes being detonated that can affect them.
True. If they wanted stuff from our planet or what have you, it is very interesting. I mean, I agree. I just say we don't know the level of intelligence. If there was a race, an intelligent species that was able to somehow get to Earth, right? And then of course they come to the U.S., right? For all our culture.
If they would obviously go above the White House, because
they would have
the pinnacle of human achievement.
It does make you wonder, though, are we the safari animals and we just can't perceive the vessel that they're in and they're taking pictures of us right now, Well,
yeah, that dives into the whole thing of if they are someone who is able to manipulate time, space, gravity, what have you, then there's no reason why they couldn't have manipulated it in such a way that they're right above us in the skies, but they've just warped space and time around themselves that they're not physically visible to us.
There is a quote that's used often, and it's like the technology was so advanced that it would seem like magic.
Yeah.
Right.
But
we wouldn't even understand it.
I mean, if you took anything, smartphone now back to the 1911 or something, that would seem. I mean, obviously you wouldn't have access to the internet because it didn't exist, but even still, you could, I'm sure that, cowboys and stuff, they would think
turning on the flashlight of your iPhone in 1911 would be insane.
Or even recording a video and then showing it back to them. You've captured my soul in your device.
Well, 1911, they would have known that, but like let's go 1300s or something like that.
Yeah, take it back as far as you need to, but the Middle Ages and stuff, then it really would be.
But we also need to understand that our ancestors were also intelligent, and they knew a lot of things.
Very much
and
so.
They've learned a lot of things. We talked about the Antikythera machine for a little bit, how crazy and complex that was. So the real question is if we've been do you think that like Roswell and those cases could be actual extraterrestrial vehicles?
I do.
Really?
Yes. I believe, and I think that was what kicked off a lot of things.
The catalyst.
Yeah, my theory behind it all is that after we detonated the first nukes,
okay,
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, all these other
the
ones.
testing in the Manhattan Project,
the testing stuff out in the Nevada desert specifically,
additional testing in like the Bikini Islands,
Soviet
testing
out in the oceans, lots of testings happened, underground explosions,
lots of those.
A lot happened, and I think that set off an alarm through the universe or through the galaxy or a local cluster, like you said. And, some other entity was like, hold up. Okay, so, we may have been aware of these things, but they've just passed this line of they're able, they're capable of extreme mass destruction now. And so we need to just go check this out. And they had one of their ships flying to go over near New Mexico and Roswell area to go check it out and kind of just observe. There's been a lot of cases of them showing up around nuclear testing sites and stuff. And it showed up there, and we had some type of I don't know, magnetic particle gun of some kind, or some type of high energy explosive beam device, some weapon capable of shooting these things down. And we shot one down, and it crashed in the Nevada desert. And we went and retrieved it, and from there decided to go into a whole thing of back engineering them to try and make them ourselves and whatnot. But I there's a part of me that wholeheartedly believes that that was the initial kickoff event of, because there wasn't many sightings or a lot of reports of things before that.
Well, there wasn't the crashes. There were not
exactly.
The idea of flying saucers and crashes were
Yeah.
pre Roswell. You have one in Trinity, right?
Yeah. There's photos and stuff from like way back in the day, and some black and white photos and things.
The Trinity one's more interesting to me because in the Trinity one, the ship hits a tower. Now, going back to our little banter session at the beginning, flying UAVs, I imagine if you were not familiar, right, and you bring a extraterrestrial craft that maybe it's designed to go through space. Maybe there's a mothership out there, and this is a like a smaller ship that comes off of that. I imagine it would be pretty easy to like miss something like wires, maybe have an aircraft, like have a bird strike, something like that would actually cause an issue, know, versus, because what you're, I don't know that we could have shot it down, because we would see that kind of thing. I think now, I think we would be I imagine we would. I imagine, because the 70s, we talked about their Cold War.
We've seen images and instances of, having large rail guns and similar type of electromagnetic propulsion firearms of different kinds.
And lasers and stuff like that. But we've seen the genesis of that a little bit. And all I'm saying is, I think we would have seen it. We would have used it. Richard Nixon or somebody, like, we would have, John F. Kennedy, somebody would have used that in Vietnam to not, to win the war, or whatever. Like, we would have seen some type of thing there. But yeah, that one's a crazy one. So that was in 1945, which is a couple of years before the Trinity. So the Trinity UFO debacle, the Trinity UFO crash happened in 1945. And essentially some kids watched this ship come down, hits a like a pole, takes it out, and it is knocked off course, hits the ground. And there's a couple of like native Spanish speaking like individuals, it's new. I think it was New Mexico, right?
Yes. San Antonio there.
So, there are a couple like more native, like Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
And they go and they go to the ship. They see 3 individuals inside the ship wearing gray coveralls, sharp eyes, no mouth, no nose, a little mouth, no nose. And they're terrified. They're alive. The creatures are breathing oxygen. They don't have masks on. And the 2 kids run off. And they decide that it's better to tell somebody than to try to like do more.
Right.
And it takes like 2 days for the authorities to come, and the little gray fellas are gone.
Of course. I mean, I doubt they would hang out for too long around there, but yeah, that's very kind of spooky and very interesting though.
So the fact that they just didn't kill the 2 kids, if this happened, right? If we can determine that this happened, the fact that they didn't kill the 2 children.
Let's assume, 100%, yes, factually 100% happened. They crashed and then came out and saw the children.
They saw the children looking at them through the hole in the ship that was gouged out by the tower.
Yeah.
They didn't kill the children, right? They didn't use some type of weapon to kill the children. So, like, are they the bad guys? you know? Because if we think about, we watch enough TV shows of like espionage and that kind of thing, right? And no witnesses, right? You hear that kind of thing.
Right.
They don't understand that, like, we don't know, like, we're not going to believe two Spanish speaking kids, and that's that we're going to keep their technology, you know, and just backwards engineer it and keep it a secret. They might think it's going to be this is it, you know, they know we're here, right? Type of thing. They also didn't wait around either.
Right.
Right. So they're gone. They ghosted us. They're Audi 5000, as the Gen Z folks would say.
Right.
Right. So if they are there, if creatures or us from the future have come back, you know, that makes more sense. If it was somebody from the future, if it was a group of individuals from the future,
then they already know, you know, what humanity is, who we are, and stuff. Oh yeah, there's them. Like, well, they should probably go.
Well, they shouldn't kill them. You know, they definitely don't want to kill them, because
if they did, that might get thrown off the whole timeline.
Exactly. That's a whole that would be a reason why not to do that, right? Whereas, like, I imagine if you were like, you know, extraterrestrial special Voyager forces, and you were here to like map out the planet or do whatever, you would be inclined to leave no witnesses.
Right.
You know, and you would probably have like an exfiltration.
Yeah, you wouldn't care. And that's why I kind of buy into the theory of, at least, I mean, my theory is also that there are multiple different species of, you know, extraterrestrials, but that most of them and that are around and that, you know, people have interactions with or encounters with are like 95% of them are benevolent.
So you think they're like benevolent observers?
Yes, that they are, you know, not coming with any malintentions, and that they're, you know, they may be here for some reason I don't know, but either whether it's to observe or, you know, I don't know exactly. But
and it's just like I said earlier,
it's not to abduct and probe and kill people and all this stuff.
Well, it's just like I said earlier, like if technology was so advanced, right, that it would seem like magic to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also an ability when we view it through like our lens, right? If there is somebody with that much, like if there is an extraterrestrial species, right, and they have come here, and there's a chance that just like we couldn't understand their technology, without an autopsy, we probably couldn't understand their feelings. Would they have feelings? Yeah. Are they cold? Are they mindless? Are they, you know, whatever? Are they AI? Are they synths? You know,
yeah, exactly. Is it just a synthetic body, like you said, that is a conduit or essentially a radio to pick up a consciousness that is somewhere else in the galaxy?
Because the question does beg itself. I've heard that people say that time machines could work, like Einsteinian, like in Einsteinian physics, a time machine could work.
Yeah.
Right. But you would need a start point. So like whenever essentially they're saying that whenever the first time machine would be made, you could always go back to that time machine, but never before.
Right.
Right. Because you need like that kind of thing. So what if there is some point in time, there's going to be certain years where if it's us in the future, you would be able to zip back, you know, maybe some type of wormhole that zips you back to, like maybe it's not just a tunnel, maybe it's a long curve archway that goes backwards.
Yeah.
You know,
I've heard very similar theories talk about that same sort of deal. And, you know, that brings in the whole thought of like, wormholes and everything. I mean, and I saw one example just talking about the idea of black holes and wormholes and stuff that I'll try to explain the best I can. That if you just took a sheet of paper and you drew a line, you drew a point A and a point B, and you drew a line between them, you know, logically you'd think the quickest way to get from point A to point B is that line from one to the other. And you're looking at it on that, you know, single plane or like, you know, an XY plane. But if you pick that piece of paper up and you fold it and you touch the dots together,
there they are. Exactly.
Instantaneous.
Yeah. That's very like that. I've seen that done a lot of times by physicists. When they're trying to talk about like wormhole travel and that kind of thing.
That could be the concept behind that.
But if it was also a loop, not only is that sheet of paper there, instead of talking about a distance, because here's what we do. We always talk about like, well, this is here and this is there, as in physical spots.
Right. If
that was temporal, right? If the same thing could apply, you fold those pieces of paper, you make those dots touch, and in fact, you actually have like a temporal way to travel to the
Well, and
past.
that's that kind of dips in a little bit of the fact of, time itself being its own dimension of source. That you have,
Mhm.
the first, second, third dimension. We live in a three-dimensional space in our daily lives. You have length, width, and height kind of thing, X, Y, and Z. But then you throw in time as this fourth thing that is, all encompassing and all within it.
And time, is affected somewhat by our own sense of gravity, right? Just like if you were to be, just like when we send our astronauts up, right? Because they experience less gravity than us, they experience time in a different way.
Right.
So they go up there. So if you were to take a astronaut's watch and, put it on there, have it synchronized with somebody on Earth, when that person would go into space, their watch would be slower than the person on Earth's would, right? And you kind of see that like with Interstellar, where they kind of delve into that like a little bit, where that like because the black hole is there or whatever. But it's also like gravity. I don't think. Matter of fact, it's not. It's the experience. I'm sorry. It's not gravity that's affecting it. It's the speed that they're traveling at.
Yes.
Associated to light.
Yeah.
So not gravity. I was
that.
going Interstellar with it. It is actually the speed at which they're traveling in relation to light.
And I've heard that if a human was physically able to withstand traveling at the speed of light, then
you essentially would not age. Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. That you could, travel to the other side of, if you traveled somewhere at the speed of light, like if you traveled to Pluto and then you came back, then you wouldn't have aged the same amount that people on Earth would have.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So, yeah, I heard a long discussion about that years ago and stuff, and it was very interesting. I forget, where it was or who was talking about it or whatever.
Well, and there's a book I like. It's called The Forever War. It's written by a Vietnam veteran. And I don't know who, I can't remember the guy's name offhand. It's a good book though. And he is essentially, extraterrestrials have been found. They get the soldiers, he gets conscripted, joins the military, and travels on a faster than light ship. Joe Haldeman.
Right.
Joe Haldeman's his name. Vietnam veteran. So they get on this faster than light ship to go fight these aliens, right? And because they're traveling faster than light or close to the speed of light or whatever, he returns to Earth, and Earth has changed. So this book was written in 1974, right?
Oh, wow.
So he's got it's pretty interesting, the ideas that he had.
That's cool. I never heard of that.
It's good. I've got it. I'll let you borrow it if you want. I won't read it sometime. It's not that big a read. But he returns to Earth, and you kind of see like these analogies from his time as a soldier with the United States Army, Marine Corps, I think, which I can't remember which one he was, but returning to Earth, and it's 200 or 300 years have passed, and everything's different, right? Like he comes back and he can't cope because it's like getting out of prison. Everything has changed. United States Army. So everything has changed. He goes back, and everybody he knows is dead. And he doesn't know, like,
right.
He's dealing with that. So you see a lot of like parallels. And eventually he tries to stay on Earth for a little bit and tries to do his own thing, but the Earth has gotten so out of hand. There's like raiders and like whatever else. And it's just not that fun to be in. And he winds up going back out again.
Back out to space.
He winds up going back and joining the military again, re-enlisting. Right.
Oh.
So he re-enlists again for not being able to like cope with the current climate that he's come back to. He's essentially not from here anymore, you know? And so he joins and he goes back out. I think he winds up getting wounded. This is a spoiler alert for the Forever War, but it's been out since 1974. He winds up getting wounded or something to that effect. And he winds up back on Earth again, but he wound up having a love interest who was also in the military. And he can't really get back to her now because of the time difference. And in the end, it's kind of nice. It's kind of like it has a pretty happy ending where it turns out they were actually doing these jumps for a while just so that he could get back with them. It's explained scientifically in the book, but he is eventually able to get back to her, and they have their own life on another planet now, you know,
That's
at
cool.
the end of it. But it is interesting because in 1974 he had this idea that is very advanced, I would say. Now, obviously there was plenty of people that understood this kind of,
Yeah.
these kind of physics, but he has a degree in physics and astronomy, and so he had like that kind of background in it. And then after his experience in Vietnam War, he turned it into what's like a decent book. I would suggest that people go out there and check it out because it's definitely up there. It's it's a sci-fi classic for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Check that out. Go look that up.
So I think that's interesting as well. Like, we never know. And this is going to get you into one of my books, one of my book theories, one of the books I'm writing currently.
Oh, right.
So one of the books that I'm writing. So for those that don't know, I'm a writer who never finishes his work. I think that's kind of like
I think it's most of them.
I think it's a character, but I'm too lazy to actually do it. / too scared of having it torn apart by the masses,
By critics and stuff.
by critics, or like not doing a good job, or people thinking my stories suck. But one of my stories, the title tentatively is called like The Gardener Returns. It takes place from like a journalist, and it starts out like kind of in like the prologue or whatever with a journalist is privy to this, essentially these beacons set down all over Earth. Like they can't be hidden. Like it's not something that can be like, that you can just like the men in black come in. Like it's very prevalent. Like there's multiple of them that land all over the place. Right. And
okay. I see what you're saying.
It gives credence like, oh, there is
like a rival kind of deal.
Sort of, but smaller than that.
Okay.
Smaller than that. Essentially, they're like kind of unmanned vehicles.
That kind of concept of that these things just land and appeared all over the world, sort of deal.
Appear all over the world, and they're like, there's nobody inside of them. They're like their own kind of craft, and they're requesting, like it's like a specific request for their they want medical and like information on vaccines and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
and after like 10 days, 20 days, they leave. So it takes place. The first chapter starts out with like a journalist, right? And he's excited because there was a countdown on that for when they would return, right? So he's excited, and it starts out with the first chapter, and it's like leading up to 0 hour.
Yes.
And what happens is, and this is an interesting theory, I think, it turns out that we are part of not only are we part of like an intergalactic community where there are alien species, but we are part of a galactic empire that we are beholden to, and that we are subject to the rules of. And they have come long ago and conscripted us into their military forces. And because of the faster than light speed travel, that essentially the veterans from that war, including like Neanderthals and humans and that kind of thing, are returning to Earth now.
Wow, I want to see this movie.
Now they're going to, and now the journalist gets conscripted into the next batch, right? And you have people that would resist it, and you would have like you're also going to have some characters that are coming back who are not happy with this galactic empire.
Yeah.
And then you have the people that are like resistant to that empire, on Earth. And then you have like the people who are like no, this is the only way. We fought for them. We own this place now, 30,000 years later, 20,000 years later. Right.
That's pretty cool. I would read that or watch that. If that was a movie, I'd totally watch that, or a TV series.
So then, that would be that would be like the first book, and it would kind of end with them going into the arriving, the conscripts, this new journalist arriving, and then you would actually get into the galactic conflict, and then you would almost get him returning again to another Earth.
Well, that's
like
cool.
20,000 years from now, 30,000 years from now.
Yeah.
And what is it going to be?
That's cool. I have heard a lot of talk about that in reality as a theory of this kind of galactic. First word popped in my head was just Senate, but that makes me think of Star Wars. But a galactic council of some kind that is made up of multiple species and races and things. I think there was who was he? He was some kind of general, maybe an Israeli general or something.
I think vaguely I know what you're talking about. Like he was I think he was like an Israeli Air Force general
or something like that. That out of retirement or something, he came out and was directly mentioning that they knew of this galactic council that exists of like 13 different species, and that we hadn't reached the point that we were, capable of being part of it yet as humanity or something like that. But that was, I kind of saw the headline on that. This was maybe a couple years ago, but that was kind of an interesting read for sure, to think about that, what if there is this Senate or this council that exists out in space that we're just not advanced enough or have earned our place in yet.
And but, the thing is too, is when I think about that, and just like my book, right? My book is obviously totally my work of my head and the things I've seen, but that's assuming that like we're putting, just like we would put like human care, like when we talk about animals being cute, or we talk about animals having like a lot of personality, right? We're putting like human things into them.
Yeah.
So the idea that it is possible that there would be some type of collective or some type of governance, right? But if you had a hive mind
if you're not like a physical being, as like I see what you're saying, that we're kind of humanizing them in a sense.
We are humanizing them in a sense that that there would even be a governing body.
Yeah.
Right. Or that they care enough about us to be like, you can join us. So you just got to do better. It's a little utopian in my view, but I think it is possible. I like that idea. And like I said, I'm even writing about it in the fact that we are part of this empire that spans multiple, not galaxies, but spans multiple solar systems and that kind of thing. And that there is intergalactic war.
And it could very well be that that exists, but also this mass consciousness exists as
hive
well.
Mind, for example, a hive mind, like a bee's or whatever, like it's just there. It's just like this ingrained, almost like there are several other animals that it's just like there's a pecking order automatically. Even cattle have a pecking order, like automatically. They automatically know who's the boss, right? That could be ingrained just from the very beginning. So we have to be cautious, I think anybody from the government coming in and they talk about things that are too human.
Yeah.
Right. Because if they say, well, there's a galactic Senate and a galactic council, or whatever, I think you can almost get lost in that, just like like dealing with a Scientology or something to that effect, right? Like we have to be cautious of like, are there people that are writing things for the government for them to be able to do things that we don't want to do?
Right.
But it's kicking off. We're seeing so many UAP, so many UFO things. Now, some of it, from what I understand, is that we've changed and we've altered the way our radar signatures work or our radar detection works. And that's the reason why we've been detecting more things that we wouldn't have.
We changed the scale so that it's picking up smaller stuff.
So we're shooting ham radio balloons down, quote unquote, ham radio balloons down, or Chinese weather balloons or whatever, spy balloons.
Yeah, I still find it a little suspicious that they just like, well, we're just going to stop looking for any kind of debris and we're not going to tell you about any of it and blah, blah, blah.
And that is a problem, and not to sound, too Alex Jones here, but that is a problem with deep state. People are incompetent.
Oh, yes.
So the idea that they are more competent to understand or deal with anything than the general public is asinine. And I think that, honestly, they might not just know.
Right.
So let's see what this is.
Yeah, pulled up this, found the article for the former Israeli space security chief says aliens exist, humanity not ready. Oh, the Galactic Federation, that's what it was.
Okay.
Has been in contact with Israel and the U.S. for years, but are keeping themselves secret to prevent hysteria until humanity is ready.
Which is silly. Like, why would they be concerned with our level of hysteria?
Right.
Why would we be concerned about, nobody steps in when the ants are doing their death spiral, right? And they're walking in circles.
Yeah.
We don't step in, why would they be concerned that like we are an issue? Like we're going to be like, oh no, there's aliens. It would be over pretty quick. Like we've seen stuff that like indicates that there could be extraterrestrial craft on our planet and it's been in the mainstream news and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Overnight, like I've not heard anybody talk about those UFOs or the Chinese weather balloon, because the news cycle is over with.
It was hyped for a week or two, and then it's gone.
If we are part of this galactic federation, and we could be, right? Yeah. Maybe we're part of it. Maybe we're like a ancillary, planet, and it's claimed by somebody else. But they don't care, Like if you were a serf in like the feudal system, your life is just shoveling poop, or doing whatever. You don't really care so much about what else is going on.
Right.
Your life is your life, and you're living it. I think that's one thing we have to be careful of, is when what are governments trying to do to get one over on us or whatever, by utilizing, because they know, well, this is bigger than you can imagine, right? No, it's not. No, it's not. We
have pretty big imaginations.
There's 350 people in the United States alone, right?
350 people.
350 million. 350 million people.
Yes. That's a lot of people.
Alone. That's a lot of people, right? The majority of them don't work for the U.S. government.
Yeah.
The majority of them don't work for local government, right? The majority of them are intelligent people.
Yes.
You have to treat people like they're intelligent.
I
think there are other nation states that would also be aware of this, that might treat their people more intelligently than we do. And I think that's one of those things that I'm cautious of, any notion that we know anything about this stuff. And I'm also interested, like, is this observer theory where they're coming here and they're looking at us,
right?
Like, is it for good or is it for bad? Because if it is a cryogenic ship, right? And they've been studying this for 50 years, right? And it took them 8,000 years to get here.
Yeah.
Or whatever, their civilization's still got to be around now to want to do anything.
To do something with that information. Yeah.
So what are they going to do with it? Are they waiting until we gas ourselves out? Maybe they're like, hey.
Unless it's one of those, that you've seen like video games or something, that it's like a flotilla of that the entire species and civilization exist on a, flotilla of ships out in space.
The Cylons were created by man and they rebelled.
I was thinking the Quarians.
Quarians too, I know. Well, it made me think of Battlestar Galactica, right?
It's all awesome.
That one ends with us being them landing on Earth, remember?
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica does. Yeah. Or the fact that there is like creation theory, there is intelligent design theory that goes with that. You see like Prometheus or the Aliens series, for example, right? Where there are the engineers.
Right. And I even, again, my own personal opinions and stuff come to that a little bit, that I think that, a creation theory and stuff, and plus the existence of extraterrestrial and stuff, can all still coexist as well.
I agree that it can all commingle. I think there has to be there needs to be a broad look at everything.
Yeah.
If we remember though, in Prometheus, when we finally do get to talk to an engineer's not happy. Rips his head off. Rips off Michael Fassbender alien head. Destroys him, right? And then he kills the guy that's been waiting to see him for this whole time. The guy that owns what was the Industries? I forgot what it was. Yolani or wait, I forget what it was.
Wayland Industries.
Waylon. Yeah, this is something cool. Yeah. But they kill that guy, and they were like the dad. They were like the father of us, right? He was part of the species that helped us start.
Yeah.
So I think just like politics change, right? A Roman citizen from 67 BC would probably never imagine that they would become an empire.
Right.
Right. They're like, well, we used to be a kingdom. Now we're not. Now we're in a republic. Right. We're never going to be an empire. That's silly.
Yeah. I do like that our government, though, that at least, even though I take all of it with a grain of salt, that you hear any headline and stuff, I, only, like I said, I don't take a grain of salt until I do research into it myself. But all that being considered, I do like that there's at least some conversation happening around this as a topic, the topic of like UAPs or potential extraterrestrials or all this stuff. I'm glad that there's at least some conversation, that it's becoming destigmatized to the point that there's at least some conversation happening about it at official positions and official levels,
and in little podcast studios in Western North Carolina.
Little podcast studios.
I agree. But the question is, who are the gatekeepers of the knowledge? Who watches the watchman? Right. And what do they know that we don't, and what do we know that they don't?
Good point.
I don't know. I think it'd be fun to really dive into some of these actual things and get into like different scenarios in the future.
There's a lot of abduction cases or UFO sightings or particular events that have happened around this topic that I would like to, like you said, take one by one and kind of actually dive into them and discuss them.
Yeah. And
pick them apart a little bit. But I think it was important to kind of just hit this topic as a high level 20,000 foot view.
Yeah.
From the spaceship.
You guys are our crew because you joined us on Patreon.
Yes.
And just giving you some of our thoughts and just kind of riffing here, because this is one of those things that like, this is a conversation that any one of you I could take to Chili's, or any one of you I could take to somewhere nice if you were
Don't go to
if you were
Chili's.
above a stowaway or something like that.
Don't go to Chili's. Go somewhere nicer than that, at least.
Wherever you guys want to go. I like you enough. I'll take you wherever. I love our fans. But
Yeah.
I would say that this is one of those things where I would want to, I could have this conversation with any person that's willing to talk to me about it, and who's not just like, you're stupid. UFOs,
Right.
no.
They don't exist.
Yeah.
Aliens are, a bunch of sci-fi hullabaloo.
Which is a valid thought, but it's not. I don't think it's that great of an idea.
No,
And I think it's
somewhat,
important to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat ignorant to think that we are the only thing in this universe.
Well, I don't though. Remember, early on I said I don't because of the way time works, right? And really, everything that's happened is still a speck. And like,
that's true. All the time that has, Earth as its own thing has existed is but just a pinprick of time.
A pinprick of time. So for us, it's huge. It's giant. It's vast because we put numbers on
billions of years,
billions and trillions and whatever. 38 billion years ago is right. It's what they pinpoint is like the beginning of the universe. Is what they say. So
that could be nothing though.
Exactly. So we could be the first sentient species that's ever existed.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, to me, that's just as possible as anything else. Or we're the only ones still around because everybody gets to the state that we're in now.
Yeah.
And geeks don't fight together well enough. And we all destroy ourselves.
End up blowing yourselves up. Right.
We all walk hand in hand into, the black.
We're into the bright flash of light.
Exactly. Which I don't want to do. I want to be around and I want to play Star Citizen with you or something.
Right. Or some more Battlefront.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, geeks fight better together.
We do.
And geeks should also follow us on our Instagram at Geek ETC Podcast and our Twitter at Geek ETC Podcast, on YouTube at
Geek ETC Podcast. What do you know?
And we have a website.
We do at geeketcpod.com.
We couldn't get the cast for some reason.
It was like $15,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so can't fork that up yet.
Can't fork that out yet.
Maybe one day.
Follow us on there. Be part of the conversation. Send us messages. I'll try to respond. Josh will try to respond as quickly as we can. Yeah. We have a lot of episodes planned for the future of covering all range of geeky topics. And, we want to hear from you. And we want you to join the crew.
Yeah. Again, it's patreon.com/geeketc podcast.
Hey, let's fight these aliens together if they ever come around and maybe want to fight. Or let's welcome them. Let's take them to Chili's sometime.
Yeah. We'll do that. Anyways, thanks for listening, people. Keep geeking out.